you as a consumer of technology is that now you've got the choice. So now you can determine whether you get the best bang for your buck or not. So the traditional vendors in the market space of collaborative knowledge consumption, of information searching, of data mining and knowledge management, what have you, they've been shaken from their pedestal, so to speak, because there's all these other niche vendors coming into that market space and taking away their market share. So Microsoft's been very strong in the enterprise market. They've been great in tertiary education and higher education. They've got a massive foothold in government and local government councils, larger mid-sized organizations, and now they've understood over the last several years that they need to innovate to make their solutions more efficient, more productive, and more relevant. Hence the reason why this is the message that they sort of go to market with. Be lean and stay lean. Don't invest a cent more than you need, but scale instantly. So everyone wants more scalability, more efficiency, and more functionality for less money. That's a given. It's more of an even playing field now than it was 10 years ago. Business anywhere, give people flexibility for a mobile workforce to collaborate to be more productive. And that's kind of a constant theme that I've been seeing in all these conferences and seminars, where people talk of all these apps and cloud-based applications that help people share documents, automate workflows and things of that nature, and tap your data goldmine. And the biggest thing that's happened over the last sort of 20, 30 odd years is the huge amount of growth in data. Gone are the days when structured data, meaning documents and Word documents and PowerPoint slides, what have you, are the only source of information within your organization. There's more video content. There's more database content. There's content which is not structured, which cannot be accessed through your standard set of Office apps anymore. So how do you make sense of all of that information that's there? Because there's heaps of information there within your organization, but if you can't access it, if that information is not at your fingertips, it's useless. And the more that data grows, the more the problem grows, in that you've got heaps of information, but not the right methods, processes, policies to structure that information, to make it readily available to your workforce so that they can be efficient and productive. Does that make sense? Cool. Now, a quick show of hands as to who's heard of SharePoint and who hasn't.
So who has?
Who has? That's the has. Yep. These people don't count. They're part of the team. So that's your job now. So you've all heard of SharePoint. So can we just start with you, sir? What's your experience of SharePoint? I think we had a quick conversation during lunch
And we use it as more of a filing system than anything at the moment, with the expectation that it should be used as a collaborative workspace, but not in any particular. There's no driving behind it. So.
Yep. And yourself?
I ever use SharePoint, but at the moment it is a limited use.
Mm-hmm.
I come from SU, and there is a push to use it more as a collaborative space, and also to switch from data on drives on SharePoint to make them available to the teams.
Excellent. What do you?
Yeah, I have seen it demonstrated in a firm where it's used as a collaborative workspace, so they've got updates on it, project teams, all sorts of documents, and all sorts of information. It's something we'd like to be able to achieve in our division, but we've got to wait for the university to embrace SharePoint and put it on so that we can kind of restrict it by the infrastructure.
And which university are you with?
Targeting university.
Okay. Yes, sir. I think it was.
We're at ACU.
Okay.
But AC, trying to do a 24 hours or less, we had SharePoint 2007, we had no support for it, it was just there, everybody could use it how they wanted, it got out of control. And so then they brought in some project people and an external company to bring in SharePoint 2010 for us. We were the trial faculty.
Okay.
But I was, I have been the person who's been involved in the project, and it just, we're in, we've migrated, but still hard to get that uptake, and I'm still trying to really learn SharePoint along with my job. It is hard, we still don't have sufficient support, and gradually our other departments got it.
And that's a very common theme. That's a very common theme.
DVE.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So we'll show you SharePoint before this session is over. So if I can leave you just with this one slide as a takeaway from today's session, right? To cut through all the clutter about SharePoint and what it means, SharePoint is not just a product, it's a solution, it's a platform. And it can do 6 things. Number 1, SharePoint creates sites. So you can create your own websites or subsites within your corporate intranet where you can publish information that you can share with your colleagues and employees, with your staff. 2, it builds communities. So once you've got all the data from a document management perspective within your SharePoint subsites, you can share it, and it can be a very collaborative effort internally within the organization. Content, yes, that's how 90% of the people that I ask, who say that they know SharePoint, think of SharePoint as a document management repository, because that's the background, that's where it comes from. So SharePoint's been traditionally used as a cloud solution to house all an organization's data. So typically what happens is a company goes, we've got heaps of data in different silos. Marketing doesn't talk to HR, doesn't talk to finance, and finance doesn't talk to sales. There's heaps of documents everywhere. What do? It's all in a G drive in an organization. They go, let's get a license of SharePoint. Let's dump all that data in SharePoint. Nothing's changed. They've just taken the problem from one end and from one silo, and they put it in another one because they haven't set up proper policies. They haven't set up proper structure. The problem's the same, except it's in a different location. So SharePoint's good for storing content. Right? And the newer versions of SharePoint are better at storing all kinds of different content. Content that's not been generated by Microsoft. Content that's unstructured, video content, audio content. Searching. So once you've got the data in there, once you've got all the information in there, how do you find that information? How easy is it to find that information? How relevant is the searching that you do within the platform to the information that you're looking for? So SharePoint allows you to do that, especially the newer versions of SharePoint, to have insightful or meaningful conversations with your data. So insights or business intelligence, SharePoint allows you to do that. In the past, with other Microsoft products, you had to buy a point solution and have that integrate with SharePoint to make sense of the data, to automate the reporting. Now it comes built in. It comes built in native within SharePoint. And composites. So once you've got the data in there, and once you've got the audience participating within SharePoint as a platform, you can then automate the flow of information in and out of the system, and you can automate the way people interact with that information. So with SharePoint, you can create forms and workflows. And I'll do a quick demo of that in a couple of minutes. Yeah. There's a few slides here that I just wanted to go over and show you this. So the big problem here, which we spoke about just then, is information location by employees is a major time consumer for businesses. Most users store their documents in folders in a network drive, right? And then searching for a document created by someone else can take a significant amount of time. Now, there's been research done on this, and the research says that the top 500 Fortune 500 companies lose an average of $12 billion per year to inefficient document management structure. Knowledge workers spend more than 25% of their time searching for information, right? So it's a huge problem, because the more unstructured information that you've got, the more data growth you've got, and the more disparate and disjointed the processes are, the bigger problem you have. Because in this day and age, all information is electronic. So you need to have a proper platform and proper discipline and rigor in the information systems that you have in place to make sense of that data, or you're lost. Which amounts to $4,800 of their time, per person's time spent annually. And when looking for documents, 71% of employees trawl the corporate network, 60% send an email, instant message, requesting to have it sent, and 35% call someone. So that's a massive amount of time spent on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis by your employees, by your staff, by teams, searching for information which they cannot, which automatically tells you that there is no discipline in the process, that they can't find that information, which means lost productivity. So how can we fix this problem, right? So that's the So now my question out to you there is, I mean, is that something that you guys are facing some challenges with? Because I saw a couple of people not there. So do you care to share?
Yeah, so for
Yeah.
us, because
Yeah.
the best way for us to do it was we didn't have the knowledge, was to migrate what we had into the new platform, and you know we'd have this training and we'd get there.
Mhm.
We're still at the we'll get there. So the information is still there, but we can't really find it. And of course, we know that in the background we need to set up our metadata fields and things that I know I have it's interesting that I have seen that it can work,
Mm.
but it does take a bit of setting up in the background.
That's right.
So, but it just the benefits for us, I think, as a national university, we're located on 6 campuses. It would be ideal, particularly with our line of work in the faculty office, because we deal with the courses and course proposals and changes and things like that. So you need to get the latest document that would help us with version control and all kinds of things. Some things we are doing well, but there's small things like managing meetings and things like that.
And collaboration, yeah, stuff like that. So are you guys doing anything with forms and workflows or anything of that nature? Or?
I was using Workflows when we were in 2007,
Yeah.
but the company that has brought it in for our new one has brought in Intex Workflow for us. We
Okay.
haven't quite activated that yet, so we've lost the functionality.
Excellent. Well, thanks for sharing that. Did anyone else have any thoughts?
Well, I just think the key point that I found in the work we've been doing with areas and thinking about business and a few other places, business, is that you set up the Microsoft, or you get the Microsoft SharePoint folder or area set up, but if there isn't any training or support or ongoing engagement that enables people to keep using it, then and particularly training, then you use about 0.01% of its capacity, and there's no motivation to keep going. Whereas
That's right.
it actually has a lot of really exciting benefits and features, but we don't get to use them very much.
So which brings me on to the next thing. For those of us who haven't seen SharePoint, I would like to do a quick sort of a demo. So you get a picture of what it can and what it can do. It's okay. So what I wanted to show here was, again, the common perception is that SharePoint is a document management repository. But as you know, that you can use it for workflow automation. You can use it to send information to other people, and you can put process and clarity around information interchange. With the newer versions of SharePoint, the biggest change is that it's much more closely integrated with other Office products that you work with, Outlook and your calendar function, and Word and PowerPoint and so on. And now with the newer versions, you don't have to step outside your Office apps to go into SharePoint to do something. So you could, within Outlook, you can do a lot of things, if that makes sense, right? So in this case, I'm going to demonstrate a process for inducting a new employee into an organization. It's a fictional company called Contoso. Amy is the HR manager, and she has to bring a new employee into the organization, walk her through the process of, go through the process of setting her up, and then that triggers a certain set of commands which goes to that person's manager through to the IT people who set her up in the organization. So we'll just walk through that workflow. So Amy logs in and fires up her browser, which is Internet Explorer. Again, SharePoint works very well with Internet Explorer because they are both Microsoft products, and SharePoint is tested for working with that browser better than any other. You can set SharePoint up as a default, so that when you fire up your browser, your particular page shows up, and that page can be customized for your particular job function. In this instance, Amy being in HR, so we've gone through to the HR page of that company. Amy logs in to her SharePoint subsite and begins the process by clicking on employee administration of adding a new employee to the business or inducting a new employee. Again, all of these forms and workflows and processes can be customized for any particular business. This is just an example just to illustrate what it can do. And there you go. There you have an employee registration form. And we would then put in the name of the new employee, their address, their number, and the department that they report into or work in. They are in the sales department, and they report into Julian. So we select Julian, we click OK, and we close that. Now she goes into her Outlook, and as you can see, SharePoint sent an email through to her Outlook saying that a manager approval process has started to induct this employee into the organization. Does that make sense? Yeah. And if you want, you can actually view the status of the workflow, which essentially is mapped out in Visio within SharePoint. And by changing the way the workflow pans out, the process pans out, you can change the hierarchies and where the information goes to, or who has the final approval authorities, and so on and so forth. And as you can see, there's a new task that's been created and that's been assigned to Julian. Please approve new employee.
So would that go to Julia's email, or would that just go to her SharePoint?
That will go to Julian's email, which we are going to see in just a little while now. Yep, and you can also see it in your SharePoint. The whole purpose is that if you're in one Microsoft, if you're in one product, you don't have to go out of one pane of glass to another screen. You shouldn't have to go out of one screen to another application, log in, find that particular workflow or process, and then have to do something with it. The whole point of that integration is to make life simple for them, so that whatever application they are in, they're able to act on it. That makes sense.
Did it get saved somewhere? What happened to it?
So as soon as that manager approval process got started by Monica, an email went through to Monica saying the process has been started. So she's got a copy of that. And an email goes out to Julian as well.
But what happened to the form, Raj? When you
Oh, the actual form. The form's stored in SharePoint.
You just close it, so it just.
So you just close it, the information is saved automatically.
Behind the scenes where it goes to.
Absolutely. So what it would then do is,
That's all customizable, so you can say close or submit or whatever you want
Hmm.
like that.
And can it save it in the folder that you want it to go into?
Yep, you
Set it
can.
up that way.
Doors behind it.
Yeah.
So what would happen is an electronic copy of that form, it's basically an electronic copy of a paper-based form.
Yep.
So it would get stored in an electronic folder, and you can automate where it's being stored. So no one has to actually go in and copy that document or physically manually store it in that folder. It automatically gets stored there. So there would be a folder within the employees section, which would be for new employees.
So when it's set up like before,
Hmm.
to be filled in, those rules are behind it.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So there's rules behind that.
Email.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely.
That's a workflow, that's all done.
And there's workflows around that. You can have drop-down menus and boxes and so on and so forth, so that if you tick a certain option, it would trigger a different workflow. For instance, if Monica had rejected that employee or asked for more information, then it would have gone to someone else who's part of that hiring process, and the form and the record would show that as well. Especially from an audit perspective, this is very important, that you need to know who's gone in and done what and at what time, and who's approved or not approved something. So SharePoint allows you to have that auditability in terms of.
So Raj, just in
Yep.
terms of managing emails then, if the SharePoint integrates with Outlook and you're getting the emails through SharePoint or through Outlook, can you delete one and then it's deleted so you delete the email in SharePoint, it'll be deleted in your Outlook?
If that's the policy that you've set. So when you set that policy, you can say I give primacy to SharePoint,
Yep.
so that if it gets deleted in SharePoint,
Yep.
that should be reflected in my Outlook, or the other way around. Or you can say they're independent of each other.
Yep.
Even if I delete a copy in SharePoint, I'll still have a record in Outlook.
Yep.
sometimes when people work in groups, or it could be a special interest group or a project team, or a bunch of people just collaborating on a particular task, they would only need those emails and data for a certain period of time, and after that you don't need it. You can just delete all of that, but you would still have a copy in Outlook just for your records.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I'm just trying to think of not creating more information overload with emails in the inbox, but you can then set up rules that any of those emails get automatically put into a folder if you did want to keep them in your Outlook.
Absolutely. Absolutely, you can do that.
But SharePoint can do that, can't it? Can it pick a subject or something and it'll automatically get saved somewhere?
You can automate rules to allow you to save that, but again, context-based searching is a whole different ballgame, and you have to be very clear when you define your metadata on what information is stored and what's not going to be stored, and where it's going to be stored, and for how long that information is going to be retained, and that's all part of your information policy. Because sometimes, because you have to understand, these are systems and algorithms built behind the program, right? So if you want, as an example, every subject heading of an email which has the word project in it to go into a certain inbox, right? That may not be the right answer, because someone could be asking for something, because again, that doesn't give you enough context. It's too generic. But if you say it's a project to do with sustainability and there's only one project, or it's a particular very specific word, and then that gets sent to a particular folder, then that makes more sense. So you have to look at relevance and in what context, or for how long you need that information sent there. Because what you don't want to do, like you're saying just then, is that have redundant information, too much information. If it's stored in one place, it gets stored again 3 times over, then that defeats the whole purpose of having automating or putting rigor in this process. Yeah.
So how does SharePoint interact with other systems? We're thinking of, we already have an HR system, which is Oracle based, but it's something that I could control. It's controlled by HR, so there would still be some, to stick with this example, there would still be some local processes when a new employee starts. But I'm just wondering how it interacts with other systems that we would have.
That's a really good question, and that
Information
absolutely, and that used to be a big hurdle in the past. The fact that a lot of larger organizations have multiple systems, so finance could have an Oracle system, HR could have a payroll system, perhaps Chris has payroll, or SAP, or a multitude of different systems, right? Typically, organizations have over 100 applications these days, and it's growing. What Microsoft have done with SharePoint 2010 and 2013, they have built in native integration with Oracle, with Cognos, with business objects, with SAP, with some of the enterprise applications that are out there. So you have connectors within the software that allow you to pull information out of Oracle and use that, act on that information in a meaningful fashion within SharePoint, and the other way around. So from SharePoint, you can also integrate into Oracle. And there's a lot of integration that comes custom out of the box, but there could be specific things around. Again, Oracle is a relational database management system, which is quite similar in its table structure to SQL without getting too technical. So it does allow you to do one-on-one mapping of data. Yeah.
It also means you basically need an expert to do that.
Absolutely. It's something you cannot do by yourself. You need an expert who has experience in working with Oracle and SharePoint integration. Yeah.
So that's the project Craig is working on with you as well to get that going. To have a look at all that.
Let me just quickly go back to this workflow just to sort of finish this example. Now, this is fantastic. That's what we want, a proper discussion, right? It's not just, it shouldn't be a monologue. So Amy logs out, and we switch users. Julian logs in. He fires up his Outlook. He's not gone into SharePoint, he's just opened his email. And as you can see, SharePoint sent him an email because the task has been initiated. His task is to review this new employee. He clicks on that hyperlink, opens up this file, and that opens a form within info path, and that's within Outlook. As you can see, it's a different form now to the new employee induction form, right? Julian can now do a multiple, he can do many things. He can say, look, I don't want this person, I'm not sure if you're hiring this person, or I need more information before I can approve them as a new employee. Or he can just go in there and put the relevant information in. They're a sales manager. Sorry, what is that?
I just said hopefully he's emailed them and they're allowed to come.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. So
Due process is being followed.
Yes.
due process is being followed. I mean, again, like I said, this is a hypothetical organization. It's not a real company. In a real company, as we know, there's no process, isn't there? Nah. But so he goes in there, he puts in all the relevant information, and then you can also decide. In this particular example, he chooses what level of access Monica has to information within the organization. So she's a contributor on the internal department side, which is also set up within SharePoint. So you could have other rules in there. For instance, what sort of equipment she has access to as a new employee. Does she get business cards? And if you tick that box, then an email would go through to your supplier who makes business cards, saying that this is a person, this is their address, this is their number, because all that information is saved electronically already. So we need business cards ordered for them, right? So you can automate a lot of the processes, routine processes within an organization that you wouldn't normally think of doing, right? And now it's quite simple, quite easy to do that using SharePoint as a platform. So you save that, and he opens up this task, and as you can see, he can either approve, reject, cancel, or reassign task. If Julian's not the ultimate hiring authority, he then has to put certain comments and then pass it on to someone else to do the job. In this instance, in this example, he's the right authority. He just clicks on approve, and it's done. Now to go back to your point there, in this particular example, you don't see any pop-ups come up saying this information has been saved or someone's been approved. You can do that as well. That's again customizable. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yep.
We switch users again. So the HR person's inducted the new employee. Her managers approved her. And now the IT guy has got to allocate emails and provision them as a user and set them up within the organization. So now the workflow passes on to the last stage or last step. They log in, open up their email, and follow the same process that Julian did. Just to click on that hyperlink there and open up this form. Again, it's a different form which pertains to IT. They've got multiple options there: create a mailbox, enable communications, etc., etc. And again, they could have other options there as to what level of secure access do they get to certain systems, whether they get access or not, or limited access. That can all be set up here. Now, this is a very important point that I want to make. You can have this all configured and set up within Microsoft if you're using a Microsoft infrastructure internally, so that when you click a button here, those tasks happen in the background without any user intervention. Does that make sense? So you click a button here and you go save and exchange email account setup without anyone having to go in and do anything. Because again, all that user information has been captured electronically. Imagine the efficiencies in this system, yeah? So we provision a new user, and the user is set up now, and they've got a username and a default password. Now please don't use that as a password for your own organization, because that's
I read the other day the most common password
Yeah.
is 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. Admin. Admin is a very common one as well.
Yeah.
Admin
Or password.
or password, yeah.
My password was passwords all for you.
That's right.
But no
not anymore.
I'm not allowed.
No.
Okay, so now the task is complete. Monica set up in the organization. And the last person to log into the system now is the new employee, Monica. She's got her username and password.
Oh, man.
She logs in, and that's the default page that she sees. Again, she can customize it as need be in the future. Being a new employee, she wants to get information on employee orientation, policies and procedures, things that she can and can't do. There's an employee FAQ section for new employees.
Put induction up there.
Absolutely. And she wants to find out more information in this instance about dental medical policies within the organization and what she's entitled to. She puts that information in there, and that search there within SharePoint is built using the Bing search algorithm, right? And that trawls through all the metadata and information on that information, that on the data that you have stored within your organization. So the more policies and rigor and structure that you have with your data, the better the more contextually relevant this information is going to be, that search is going to be. So when a new employee,
Do you have guidelines for actually how?
Oh, absolutely.
Because that's the problem we find, everybody calls something different, dental market, team
Yep.
or something like that. So
that's right.
that's what we have, is that people call things whatever they think of,
Hmm.
and it doesn't relate to what somebody's searching for. So how do we get some consistency and some guidelines in actually naming documents correctly?
So the last two versions of SharePoint, so there's a human element and there's a technology element, right? So SharePoint's built on ISO standards around information architecture, and that's those standards come out of the box. So a lot of times the system forces you to apply that information in a certain fashion, right? At the same time, you need to have workshops and you need to have consensus internally within an organization, across faculties, across your organization, so that if say science calls this medical, dental and vision, then law cannot call it something different. They can't call it dental, vision and medical, because again that will skew the search. So there has to be consistency in how you name documents, one, consistency in how you name folders and how you archive information, so that there's no redundancy of information across different databases, right? And consistent, and we also find, like in all the projects that we've done, people don't talk to each other, so they think that something's not being done, but it's actually being done, and it's being done fantastically well with some other division of the business. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but just copy the guidelines or the common sense that they're using and just apply that as a policy across the organization. So a lot of the work that we do is not just set up SharePoint, which is relatively easy, but it's training people around the information architecture as to where information is stored, what the hierarchy of information is, who's got the right permission levels to access that information or act on that information, and so on and so forth. And that informs every process that comes after that. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?